All right. How's everybody doing this evening? Thank you
Hey,
guys for tuning in. Let's go. So we got some questions. We only have a handful of questions, so we probably won't keep you guys on too late. Um, we did have a really good shadowy event on Saturday, and
yeah,
our platinum coaching students was able to shadow us in Baltimore. We went to um, Jay's property. Jay's properties, actually, the first property that needed renovation. She had just bought the property. I believe she bought it. I can't remember if she bought it at the auction or not, but she bought it for in the 40s, and she's going to renovate that one. We went and looked at another one. Both of those two are in West Baltimore, and that second one, she did some light renovations. She bought that one from a wholesaler, and she negotiated a really good price, really good neighborhood, and she's getting ready to rent that one out, Section 8. And then the third property was one of my real estate agents, Shalene. She purchased that property, I think, for around 35,000. She only owes, she told me yesterday, around 80 some thousand on that one. And it was a really, really nice renovation. Really, really
yeah.
nice finishes, granite countertops. Um, it was in East Baltimore, and they did a really good job on that one. As a matter of fact, one of our investors on the Platinum Coaching Program, hopefully, fingers crossed, will buy that one and rent that property out. And then we had a really nice luncheon networking session in Little Italy, where we was able to network and just go over what we had solved for the day and the lessons learned and what the eventual outcome will be of that day, and just to move things forward. So Saturday with our platinum coaching students, it was a really good day.
Yeah.
And so we have Karen and Tracy and Nikki's in the house. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section. I see a few others. And so, Keith, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, let's get started. Actually, Nikki, she sent me a couple of questions. So let's go. So Nikki's first question is, Greg, would you invest in a property if the seller still has tenants?
And so, Nikki, I get that question all the time. I think the initial question would be no, but if I was being honest, I have. And so I bought a 2 unit building in Baltimore. It was a 2 unit. I bought two units actually, one in West Baltimore and one in Dundalk. Both had tenants in there, and tenants were paying market rent. I was able to negotiate a really good price on both of them. I paid less than 50,000 for the 2 unit, both in great areas, especially one in Dundalk. The other one is in West Baltimore in Edmondson Village, right on Edmondson Avenue. And so theoretically, I would say no. But if the tenants are paying market rent, I mean, if they're Section 8 tenants and they're paying, what the market bears, then and they're good tenants, I would do that. But overall, a regular residential, I'd rather get them out of there. In most cases, they're behind in the mortgage. That's why the landlord wants to sell. I'd fix it up and rent it out. And normally, landlords are renting the properties out below market. And so sometimes it's better just to get them out, fix the property up, rent it out for, um, you know, at the top of the market.
Mhm. So, Greg, Nikki's additional question is, when it comes to areas to invest in, how do you determine what area to start investing in? Now, I did give Nikki some ideas, but I'd like to hear, your feedback on this.
And so, in terms of areas to invest in, we always say we want to start investing in older neighborhoods, I'll say 50 years or older. And so, here in the DMV, almost anywhere in DC is good, as long as you can afford it, because in DC you've got houses over 100,000, over 100 years old. And then a lot of us are in Prince George's County, and so what we call inside the Beltway, the Heights in the Hills, Capitol Heights, District Heights, Temple Hills, Oxon Hill, Suitland, those kind of areas are older neighborhoods. I live in Bowie. Bowie, Maryland is not a good area for investors because you can't buy low and sell high here. And so in those areas, you want to be able to buy low, which you can, and sell high. And so that's what makes those areas a good area. And so you want to look for older houses in older neighborhoods where you can buy low and sell high. For example, one of the last houses I purchased was, this is not the last house, but just the one that comes to mind. I bought a house in Landover, Maryland, and in Kentland, and I think I paid about $150 for it. I think I paid a wholesaler, which was one of our coaching students, Dana. I must have paid Dana about $10,000. So I'm all in at $160. I put about $50,000 into it and rented it out. And when I refinanced, the appraisal came in at about $320. And so I'm starting with over $100,000 in equity, about $500 or $600. I'm renting the property out for $2,200. My note is around $1,100. So I've got great cash flow. I've got a ton of equity in the property, and so that's just an example of an older neighborhood. Landover is an older neighborhood, and so that's just a prime example of where you should be buying. You want to buy something that's distressed, something that you can buy it, fix it up, and have equity in it, whether you're going to flip that property or buy and hold that property.
And Greg, here's another question. Antoine has this question. What's up, Antoine, if you're on the line? So Antoine is asking, Greg, in your 30 years of experience.
That sounds like I'm really old.
Yeah.
How come we just can't say in your years of experience?
Because I think he wants to hear just a little bit of your story.
No, Antoine, you can't hear my story.
In your 30 years of experience, Greg, what has been a solid game plan for you as you have been an investor agent?
An investor agent? Mm-hmm. And so that's a good question. My game plan has always been to build wealth. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And so as an investor agent, or what we call us agent investors, as a real estate agent, you're not building wealth. Listing and selling real estate is what we call active income. You sell a house, so you sell your listing, you only get paid that one time. That's active income. We want to put ourselves in a position where we get more and more passive income, bring passive income to our lives, and that's from buying and holding real estate. And so that's what I always focused on, is buying and holding real estate, using the commissions that I made from selling real estate, use that money to then buy and hold. Now, for many years, I flipped properties and didn't do enough buying and holding. And then the recession hit in 2007, 2008, where I sold some of my properties off, and then started building back my portfolio. But as an agent investor, you want to do what I did. You want to focus on living within your means, taking the cash from your commissions and using that cash to then buy and hold. Go from active income to passive income. And again, the more passive income we bring into our lives, the sooner we can retire financially free. We can build generational wealth, leave a legacy for our children and our children's children, and just kind of do all of the things that we want to do in life. But we want that money to be coming in passively. Buy a house one time. Now we can make money off of that house for the rest of our lives, pass those down to our children. That's how you build generational wealth. You can do that as an agent, but you've got to be disciplined. and you got to live within your means and then invest your money. And then one last thing, you want to have a marketing strategy as an agent investor where you're marketing for listings in the same targeted areas that I talked about with Nikki's question, where 10 to 20% of the listings you get, if you market in the right areas, are going to be listings for you. They're going to be listings. They're going to be motivated sellers that would rather have an investor buy the property, but the numbers aren't going to work out. They're still motivated to sell. And so you just list the property and get a commission. And so I did that my whole career. I farmed, we call it farming, or I marketed to older neighborhoods where I knew that I was putting myself in a position where some of these listings are going to turn into investment deals that I can buy and hold. And so I did a lot of that.
And Greg, I have one more question. This is Karen Parrish's question, Greg. Can you point Karen in the direction of the short sale team or division that you use?
And
I do have some background here, but I'll just let you go ahead.
So we have Tarsha on the line with us. Hello, Tarsha. And so Tarsha's she's in charge of affiliate services at the brokerage. So she's in charge of the title company and the mortgage company. Tarsha, you want to speak to sort of the short sale team and who we send our short sales to and what role the title company plays in that?
Sure. And so just to start out, for those of you that don't know what a short sale is, it's basically when you owe more on your mortgage than you're able to sell the property for. And so when you owe more on your mortgage than what basically market value is, or you're able to get a seller or a purchaser to purchase the property for, you have to go to the bank and get the bank to agree to a price that's lower than the balance on your mortgage. And so typically you have a short sale negotiator that will serve to facilitate or negotiate with the bank to get the price that's going to work for the deal. And so we work with Alan Weiner. He's our short sale guru who helps in that negotiation, facilitating the communications with the bank in order to get them to reduce the amount that's owed so that it can turn into an actual transaction. Greg, you do a lot of short sales. Do you want to speak to kind of the timing and the expectations as to what happens along the way?
And so the short sale process can be a lengthy process. I kind of grew up in a short sale market. We were in a short sale market in like the mid 90s. And then through the early 2000s, things got better, what I call the real estate heyday up until about 2006. But at any rate, then we went into, during the recession, we went back into a short sale market. Short sales, as Tarsha said, simply means that the owner owes more on the mortgage. The mortgage balance is more than what the house is worth. So we want, instead of the bank foreclosing on the property, they don't want to foreclose because it's going to cost them about $50,000 or $60,000 to foreclose. They're willing to accept less than owed on the property. They're going to require, in order to do the short sale and them to take less, they're going to require bank statements, pay stubs, W-2s, and a hardship letter. And have the seller sign an authorization letter. Once they get all that information, generally handled by what's called the loss mitigation department, they will send out an appraiser. An appraiser for them is simply a local real estate agent who's basically the eyes and ears for them. The bank could be in North Carolina, could be in Texas. And so they'll hire a real estate agent. We call them a BPO, a broker's price opinion. And the agent will go into the property, will take pictures, exterior pictures, interior pictures. They'll pull comps and they'll write a report, send it to the bank. And that's how the bank gives value to the property. Banks, generally speaking, will take 80% of the as-is value. And so because of that, and they're taking 80% of the as-is value, not the after repair value, it's often great deals for investors like us. And so at any given time, like right now, I probably have about 5, you think? About 5 short sales just waiting to get approved. And so that's basically it. That's basically what a short sale is. We wait until the bank approves the short sale. Now, the bank, once they have the package and all the information, the BPO, they go into a committee and then they determine whether the sales price on the contract is what they want to give you, or they'll either accept the offer, reject it, or counter the offer. And then when you get it back, keep in mind, they're going to give you a short sale approval. But if it's more than the contract price, you have the 3 options. You can accept it, reject it, or counter it. We always counter their offer. And sometimes they'll come down. Oftentimes they'll come down because, again, a bank is not in the business of selling real estate. They're in the business of lending money. And so a short sale is a great way to invest in real estate. And so we always have a number of short sales that we're waiting on. I would say that we've slipped into a short sale market, especially with interest rates going up. We've got a lot of homeowners who are coming out of the pandemic where they were, a lot of them had forbearance agreements that they just couldn't continue to make the payments. And that those interest payments kept, they add up. So that's basically what a short sale is. And so if you guys see a property that the seller owes less than, owes more than what the property is worth, the first thing that should come to mind is this is a short sale. And you just have to explain to them everything that I just said to you, what a short sale is. You've got to let them know that, unfortunately, they're not going to make any money. The lender will not allow them to make any money. But at the same time, they're not going to have a foreclosure on their credit report. Mm-hmm. Now, the guidelines change, or the guidelines have changed over the years in terms of when they can buy another house after the short sale. And so, Tarsha, you might want to talk a little bit about that, because I think where the guidelines are now is different from where they were like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it's also loan specific. And so depending upon whether it's an FHA loan or a conventional loan, that's also going to dictate whether and the timing on purchasing another property. And also bear in mind that for the seller, sometimes you could be viewed as having the difference between what you actually the difference between what you owe and what the property sells for sometimes might be considered income. Right, Greg?
Yes, it is considered earned income, which means in some cases the lender can give the homeowner a 1099 at the end of the year. And so let's say they come up short and the bank has to eat $25,000. They look at that $25,000 as a taxable event. They look at it as a capital gain, and the seller is taxed on that $25,000. And so whatever tax bracket they're in, let's say they're in a 30% tax bracket, or let's just say a 20% tax bracket, they've got to pay 20% on that $25,000, that shortfall. So, but there is a form 981 IRS Form 981, that they can use that form to offset that capital gain. So that in essence, they're not paying any of that money. And so if they say that, am I going to have to pay, and they often do, am I going to have to pay, am I going to get a 1099 for the shortfall, or am I going to owe that money? The answer is really no. I mean, they're going to get a 1099, and that's not guaranteed, but they could get a 1099. If it's an investment property that's a short sale, you're almost guaranteed to get a 1099. But if it's an owner occupied property, nowadays the chances are that you will get a 1099. But again, the homeowner can offset that with the Form 981. And you can just Google IRS Form 981. They can use that. Their accountant can use that, and they'll use that form to offset any of the capital gain.
Hey, Greg, Tarsha, I was curious. I know once upon a time that the wait time off of a short sale was like right around 18 months, where that person that was in that situation would now be able to buy. Has that timing changed?
Yeah. So the timing's changed. Tarsha can speak to that. I think nowadays, correct me if I'm wrong, they look at a short sale the same way they look at a foreclosure. And the wait time is, I think the FHA and VA, I think the guideline is 3 years. But you can correct me, Tarsha.
2 years for FHA and VA, 3 years for conventional.
So they changed it again. Okay, so they look at it as like a bankruptcy then, because that's the same guideline as a bankruptcy.
Have you guys saw of any way to get around that at all with potential buyers, new buyers?
No, those are hard to get around. You could always get around stuff. That's why Tarsha's laughing. But that's a tough one. That's a tough one to get around, because the guidelines are the guidelines.
Yeah. But in any case, I guess it's better than having a foreclosure on your record.
Yeah, it's better. It's better than foreclosure.
Right.
So there's a couple questions. Can you wholesale a short sale? And the answer is yes. I mean, you can wholesale anything. Just make sure that if you're going to wholesale a short sale, make sure the buyer's name is an LLC, is a new LLC, what I call a generic LLC, like the address LLC. Just make sure that the LLC is a brand new LLC. It's not an individual name. It's not an LLC that there's something already in the LLC. It's a brand new LLC. And so I like, the easiest thing is that the house address is 123 Main Street. It's just easy to put 123 Main Street LLC. Now the lender is going to ask for an operating agreement and articles of incorporation, and so you're going to have to register the LLC and provide that information. And then once the short sale gets approved, then you can always change ownership of the LLC. So that LLC is still closing the deal, but there's a form that I think our Platinum Coaching students have it in their toolkit, where you can basically change ownership of the LLC to whoever you're assigning to. So we have that document.
And so may I add to that? Because I've seen that kind of go south when you kind of don't know what you're doing. So to be very clear, the lender should not know that you're wholesaling the deal, right? Because if the lender knows that you're wholesaling the property, then that means that you're basically preventing the lender from making more money and getting more money back for the outstanding balance that's owed on the mortgage. And so what you typically do is, as Greg said, you basically buy out the ownership interest in the LLC, and that's done as a separate transaction, not one and the same with the wholesale deal. And so I have seen that people will put the wholesale fee on the actual HUD that's going to the lender, and then the lender's like, "I'm not doing this. You're wholesaling the deal. You're making more money," and then it kills the deal. And so just be careful.
And it looks like Karen says that her short sale is probate, and so we find that a lot with probate deals. The good thing about short sales with probate is the process is a lot faster, because since the homeowner's deceased, there's little to no financial information. There's no bank statements, pay stubs, W-2s. There's no financial information, and so the process is a lot quicker. You're dealing with the personal representative in this case, but they're looking at the financials of the deceased. And so Karen, you're just going to have to explain the short sale process to the PR, and then they just have to disclose to the short sale lender by providing a death certificate that the homeowner is deceased. And everything's fine. Can you wholesale a house in bankruptcy? That's easy too, because you're dealing with the trustee, and everything has to go through the trustee. If the house wasn't a short sale and there was money to be made by the homeowner, the trustee gets the money first, and then they'll distribute that money to the creditors. On a short sale, there's no money going to the homeowner, and so the trustee, they just go ahead and just approve the short sale. And so it's the short sale, that's a bankruptcy. And so those are pretty simple also. Tarsha, let's talk about financing real quick. We get a lot of questions about DSCR loans as it relates to investors. Can you explain what those type of loans are?
Sure. So DSCR stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio. And so all that means is that you are basically looking at primarily two components in order to determine what the rate is going to be, and therefore what the mortgage payment is going to be, and ultimately if the deal is going to work. And so you're looking at the rental income, and you're dividing the rental income by the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, the PITI. That stands for PITI. So if you hear a lender say PITI, that's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And so that ratio is called the DSCR. So it's you take the rental income on the property and you divide that by the PITI. That's going to give you a ratio. For nowadays, so there are typically 3 tiers that the lender will look at to determine what the rate is. Tier 1 is usually when that ratio is 1.4 or more. Tier 2 is 1.0, meaning your mortgage payment equals your rent, or more, so it's 1.0 or more, up to 1.4. And then less than 1 is going to be tier 3. And so the lender will determine what the rate is going to be based on those 3 tiers, primarily, generally speaking. And so that's what you need to understand. That's essentially what DSCR is.
And can you give us, did we lose her?
Looks like she's trying to get back in. Looks like it's.
All right, you guys, that's all the questions that we have. If you guys have any more questions, you can put them in the comment section. I think that she's coming back in now. There she is. Real quick, Tarsha, can you give us an example of maybe one of the last one or two loans that you did? DSCR? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, give us an example of one that you've done that either went really, really good or really, really bad.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did
Okay,
you hear
can
my
you
question?
repeat what you asked me?
Can you give us a quick example of a DSCR loan that you recently completed that either went good or bad? I don't think she can hear us.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. All right, you guys. Any other questions? I'm doing a podcast tomorrow, you guys. And if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, I see Diane just subscribed. But if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll be able to get it. And it will be live on YouTube, live on my Facebook. I'm going to go over tomorrow how to build a predictable real estate investment business where you can predict your outcome. Where Karen, for example, came to my office yesterday. Karen and I did a one-on-one yesterday. And she said to me, Greg, I want to close one deal a month. And I looked at her and she was serious. And she said, I want to do one wholesale deal a month. And so I took out my pen and paper, and of course she had hers out, and we just kind of wrote out a plan to do it. And so I've kind of been on this journey the last year or so on trying to figure out, even for myself, how I can make my business more predictable. Like I want to get to 10 wholesale deals a month. And so, but I want it to be predictable. I want to know what all my numbers look like. I went all over the numbers with Karen. How many, for example, with cold calling, how many for every virtual assistant that you hire, how many calls do they need to make? And out of the calls, how many appointments out of those calls should they be getting? And out of those appointments, how many contracts should be written and closed? And so if you know those numbers and you know the analytics to those numbers, you can really predict your outcome. And so I'm going to be going over all those things. Keith and I had a meeting with a new virtual assistant company today, Riva Global. And that's what we talked about. We talked about predictability. For every virtual assistant, how many calls are they going to make in an 4-hour period, 8-hour period? And then how many of those calls are going to lead to an appointment? And then how many appointments are going to lead to a closed deal? And so I'm going to be going over that at noon tomorrow. Tune in. If you can't tune in, it will be on my all my podcast channels and on YouTube. And so just try to tune in tomorrow at noon. Other than that, Keith, I don't see any other. Oh, here's a question. Let's see. A couple questions. It says, I'll put it up here. It says wholesaling regulations and is possible to create a scalable wholesale business doing multiple deals a month. I think this is a question. I think the question is with the wholesale regulations.
The new wholesaling regulations coming forth, maybe.
Can you scale your business? Is that the question? I think that's the question. And so obviously the answer is yes. And so the new wholesale regulations coming is Maryland State Bill 301, I think it is, 301, where in the state of Maryland, they're trying to require real estate investors, real estate wholesalers to have real estate license. They're only allowing wholesalers in the state of Maryland to do one deal in a 12-month period without a license. And so my take on that is, like I said earlier, obviously there's ways around that, easier ways around that. But the easiest solution is just to get your real estate license. That's the easiest thing to do. Instead of fighting the system, can you do multi-members LLCs and buy real estate out of LLCs? You can, multi-member LLCs where somebody in the LLC has a real estate license. Double closings, you can do a double closing, but it's a waste of money, 2 closings. So there's ways around it. Easiest thing to do is just to get your real estate license. And so this is an incorrect statement. Since wholesaling is illegal in Maryland, will you be able to list it on the MLS? So wholesaling is not illegal. Right now it's legal. And then after, I think it's November the 1st, if it
October 1st, I think is when it takes effect.
Okay. It's still legal.
Yeah.
You just have to have a license for doing 2 or more. All right. Karen says she spoke to, so Karen, I'd like to get some feedback. You spoke to Vulcan 7 today. That's another dialer. And so we use Mojo Dialer. I'll talk about Mojo tomorrow on the podcast. And so Vulcan, I think you and I looked that up. I would like to get some feedback on there. One thing that I'm looking for, Karen, is a company that has more than 3 dialers. And so Mojo has the triple dialer. I was on a podcast a week or 2 ago, and they talked about a dialer that dialed 12 calls at the same time. And they had the name of that company, and I didn't write it down. But Karen, I would like to know what Vulcan was saying. Oh, Karen is saying that they only have a single dialer. And so that's not good. You need at least, in order to scale your business and get through the when we do the analytics, you've got to make somewhere around 600 calls to get to one appointment. And so number one, you can't do that on your own. Number 2, you've got to do it with a dialer. And number 3, you've got to have a virtual assistant, in my opinion, make those calls. Now, if you do all 3 of those things, you can get through 600 calls in what, Keith, like 4 hours?
4 hours, yeah. My VAs are averaging about 600.
600 calls every 4 hours.
Right.
And so every 4 hours, you should get 1 to 2 appointments. 1 to 2 appointments every 600. So you should be getting, at the very least, on an 8-hour day from your VA, at the very least, you should be getting about, I'll just say on the low end, 2 appointments a day. Now, one other thing I will say, and I'll talk about this tomorrow, is you don't want to just get any VA. The ones that we talked to today, the VAs come trained on real estate investing. They come trained on that. So they already know Mojo Dialer. They already gone through scripts. They've been trained by the companies. And so there's a handful of real estate investment virtual assistant companies, most of them based out of the Philippines. One, investorvas.com, based out of, I believe, Indonesia. But at any rate, they are trained for what we do. And they range between, I'll say, between $8 an hour and $11 an hour. And so this is a good question from Carissa. Do we give them a message? And so you can give them scripts, Carissa, but they have their own scripts too. Now, their preference is to use our scripts. They want to say what we want them to say. But if you're new at this and they have the experience, most of these VAs come with a manager. And so you're talking to the VAs, but you're also meeting with their managers once a week. And the managers can tell you give you an idea of the scripts, but you can also give them scripts. And when I tell you that the VAs cost somewhere between $8 and $11 an hour, that includes the VA and their manager. Here goes another question. Do they find the contact phone number for us? They can. They can skip trace for you. So they do skip tracing, but a lot of times we're giving them lists. Like if you get a list from like PropStream will either have the number, or you can do the skip tracing yourself out of PropStream. Or if you have a big list and just have names and addresses, what I do is I use reiskip.com, and I'll send over the list in a CSV file, and it comes back within an hour with the phone numbers if you don't have it. But their VAs, one of the services that they provide is skip tracing. And so if you're interested, just DM me, text me, call me, and I'll give you the information for the company we are using. So we've been using VAs for, I'll just say over 10 years, but probably longer than that. And so we're trying out this company, and that was highly recommended. And so far, so good. All right. Anything else, you guys? So try to tune in tomorrow, building a predictable real estate investment business. All right. So question is, how many leads should you use per month? So it's just a matter of doing the math and what you can afford. And so we tell you that you just got to do the math, and I'll do it for you tomorrow. But for every 600 calls, you get 1 to 2 appointments. Then, you just got to do the math on that.
And then part of that, Greg, is for each phone number needs to be touched at least 7 times before you give up on calling that number. Sometimes you may have to talk to your VA, or either if you're making the calls, if you're calling at one part of the day, maybe you need to switch up and call at another time in that day, or the next time that you're dialing that person.
And even that list, you call it 7 times, you put it away, and then you bring it back, maybe 3 to 6 months later, and call that same list again. Never discard it.
Right. And then another quick strategy, Greg, and this, is that Mojo, they allow you to purchase caller IDs. So that person is not seeing the same number all the time. It costs like $5 for 30 days or something like that.
So the number that you're calling from, the caller ID that they're going to see, you can switch that up so they don't think the same person's calling.
That's right.
And we've spent a little bit of time on calling, and the reason we've done that tonight is because calling is one of the ways that a lot of our coaching students, but also including us, have gotten deals. Calling, cold calling, and then doing it all the right way. Postcards, we've had a lot of success with that. Auction properties, lots of success from that. Networking, and branding ourselves, social media, lots of deals that way.
But also, Greg, is making that call to the postcards that you sent out.
Yeah. And so, and so saying out of, let's say 10,000 leads, I should get 16 appointments. I guess that's the math. That's probably the math.
That's about right, Greg, because for the list that you sent the postcards, that was roughly about 10,000 leads. And we did set close to at least 10 appointments, but they were mostly on the real estate side.
Yeah. No, we did good. We did good with that list.
Yeah.
And so that list was, majority of that list was the whole list was absentee owners, and then a large percentage of those absentee owners were out of state.
Mm-hmm.
So out of state absentee owners. All right, you guys, I think that's it. Karen is saying also having a website too on all marketing material helps. And it definitely does. We use OnCarrot, O-N and Carrot, oncarrot.com. And so having that so they can go to your site and they can opt in for some information. Now you've got their stuff. They're
Just like yours.
Yeah, so that's a copy of my postcard. My fastcashdmv.com is on there.
Yep.
All right, you guys. Hopefully we'll see you guys on the podcast tomorrow. If you guys are interested in our coaching program, we've got the best coaching program in the DMV. Lots of our students are on now. Lots of our students have been extremely successful. You can contact me, contact Keith. If you want to schedule an appointment, go to my initials, GB Schedule, gbschedule.com. If you want to schedule an appointment, or KB Schedule for Keith, kbschedule.com. Other than that, you guys, let's take action. Let's take the information that we're learning and let's build wealth with it. Let's build wealth. The link to my YouTube, you guys should be on my YouTube now, but it's my YouTube is Gregory Bennett. Just put Gregory Bennett, maybe real estate, and it should pop up. But it's Gregory Bennett. And if you can't get that, I'll send you a link. All right, you guys, take care. God bless, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Good night, guys. Good night.
Good night.